Hey, welcome to our last lecture before the Thanksgiving break, where we get, unlike most semesters, an entire week off. Oh man, we didn't get any days off before, but this will all make up for it now. Any questions about the homework or anything? Put them in either chat. Otherwise, today we're doing a bit of a throwaway in terms of it's not going to be any kind of technical info that's going to help you on any homework, but it might help your understanding of why people hack other people on the internet. And that's because of where and how the money on the internet is distributed. So, beyond the different cybersecurity concerns that we've talked about already, there's an awful lot of other nefarious, gray, and black market type stuff on the internet to generate a living. And we'll look at some of those and how they might apply. And you can think for yourself about how, as a developer, you might run into those problems. But it is something that a lot of times services do not consider before they deploy. Alright, someone asked for the separator value, the comma. Couldn't that character be used in the password, screwing up the program? Shouldn't be a problem, I think, if you have a comma in your password, but if you want, you can reject commas in the entry box. I have nothing against you taking only the common symbols and numbers, but you can certainly encrypt a regular message, an essay or something, and obviously English would have many commas in it, so I don't think it would be a problem, but it might be, so who knows. You can feel free to exclude commas if you think it's going to be an issue. I wouldn't take off for it. Oh, I posted a link to a textbook that I like for cybersecurity concepts. It's a good quick overview of different things. There's a chapter on RSA if you want to learn more about how it works to help with your implementation. But again, the actual implementing of it is probably best left to just finding the best resource out there. Now, do make sure that what you implement is actually RSA 2048-bit RSA. Don't come and turn in a completely different algorithm. There are certainly many, many ways to encrypt files in Java and in any language, so make sure you're doing the one that was asked. Okay, so how to make money on the internet. Let's look at the different options. You've got your advertising, your subscription-based media and content. You can sell things, real things, physical goods, or real services. There's your traditional sales, where you sell things directly to the people buying them. There's arbitrage, typically in the form of drop shipping on the internet, but arbitrage usually refers to buying from one party, selling it to another, sometimes without even taking physical possession of the goods. So things like buying futures and such could be considered arbitrage. You've got your good old counterfeiting and black market sales. You've got your selling of digital goods and services. And then you've got extortion and straight up stealing. Which of these is the shadiest and most morally reprehensible? Which of these is the worst? Well, that's easy. It's definitely advertising. Advertising is the shadiest profession there is. That is probably the least honest way to make money on the internet. But let's talk about some of the big problems in advertising that make it such a weirdly dishonest field. So, how do you know that a customer is real? How do you know that somebody looking at a ad on the internet is a real person? How do you know that their click or engagement with the advertisement is genuine and real as well? How do you know that they meant to click on it and that they're actually a real human being? If they watched your ad, how do you know they actually watched it and they didn't step away to do something else? How do you know that they're real at all and not just a robot? And most importantly, how do you know that your ads are working? How do you determine the return on investment, the ROI that you get from your ads? And who determines your ROI? Do you? Let's say you start an ad campaign and you spend $5,000 on it. How do you determine that you've gotten $5,000 worth of value out of it? There is definitely some ROI in advertising. There is definitely some correlation between spending money and getting business out of it. However, it is very easy to sink money into the advertising hole and get absolutely nothing out of it as well. So that road definitely goes both ways. And the industry of advertising fundamentally relies on the latter market, the people who sink their money in and get essentially nothing out of it. It's probably the bulk of the spending on advertising, really. All right, let's look at the different cybersecurity scenarios that often happen in the advertising industry. So this was a big deal when advertising first started, and it remains a big deal today, but less so. And that is trying to dupe your ad purchasers into believing that their ad worked. Essentially, the biggest market for this was, and always has been, tricking AdSense into thinking that people are actually visiting your crappy website and clicking on the ads. Remember, AdSense pays out for everybody that looks at your ads, so you want to trick Google into thinking that people have looked at your ads and generate a revenue that way. That's the most fundamental version of this scam. So how do you do that? Well, you can pay people in the third world who make very little money $1 an hour in order to actually engage ads for money. That's not the best market, but there was certainly a category of business that did that. They paid real human beings to pretend engage ads for money. Then there are machines that do this by pretending to be human. There were, for a long time, different applications like auto clickers and auto watchers. There are still different advertising automated suites that just watch ads on your behalf and collect the small amounts of revenue or whatever. Some of these continue to work to generate dollars a day. You have to be willing to put up with your accounts being banned and having to make new ones repeatedly, but this is definitely something that's still done. And then, of course, there's the impact of social media now. There's the astroturfing of fake social media accounts. You go on Reddit, generate an account with a lot of karma, post things that are nice about a corporation, fake memes about a corporation, this sort of marketing. You can pay real social media accounts in order to upload your crappy advertising. There's all manner of that sort of thing. And then, of course, the ads on social media themselves operate on a click basis. So fake accounts, clicking on those, you could easily generate some revenue in that way. In some instances, you can mitigate this by making it so that the advertisement pays out on a per customer basis. This is something that Google has been pushing lately. It's one of their main ways to counter this kind of fraud is that they do what are called managed ad campaigns, where they will basically do your selection of keywords and all of this stuff for you. One of the services that they offer is that rather than you paying per click, you pay per customer conversion, so you have some sort of cookie, most likely, so we just learned about cookies, that indicates that a customer was actually converted, and this doesn't pay out until somebody redeems that cookie and also gets past, let's say, your sign-up screen, so they actually subscribe to your website. So they've subscribed and they've sent the ad cookie, then they are considered a customer. This is typically very expensive. You might pay well into the double digits, maybe even the triple digits per customer. So you'd be paying somewhere on the order of $50 a customer to run this kind of ad campaign, which is still technically dupable with enough effort. And of course, it is much more expensive for each time you get duped in this way. All right, so these are very difficult problems to counter, the fake ad clicks and fake farming of advertiser revenue. Which brings you to a meta-adversary that uses this trick in order to defeat their opponents in business. Let's say that you want to get your competitor banned. You want to get them shut down. The easiest way to get their website banned from Google is to run a very poorly hidden bot and click on all their ads. There is almost nothing you can do to mitigate this. If somebody decides to get your website banned, all they have to do is make it look like you're trying to farm ad revenue through automated clicks, and Google will just auto-ban them. And there's essentially no recourse at that point. So this is a very, very unfortunate attack. Don't do this to anyone. It's very mean. But basically, you just run a poor quality click bot on their website, their ad account gets banned, their business will probably be shuttered. So, when do right, no can defend. This is definitely one of those secret arts of cybersecurity. It's very frustrating. The only real solution to this is just don't rely on ads for your revenue. All right, then you've got your people trying to hide ads as an organic content. So you've got your classic astroturfing, guerrilla marketing, product placement. We've all seen our awesome posts on social media. Just got Taco Bell, hashtag Taco Bell. Totally not sponsored by Taco Bell. So there is sponsored content masquerading as real organic content. To avoid sponsored content, paid or fake social media accounts post or promote their advertisements disguised as regular content. This is typically very expensive to do. You got to pay an agency to do it, or pay some people a salary. They probably have to be native English speakers to pull it off with anything remotely looking successful. So it's not a cheap thing to do. It's difficult to ascertain the cost, but this kind of astroturfing is expensive. If you're doing it on social media, you've got to either hire somebody or buy some accounts to look trustworthy. Everyone knows you can't just pop in with a blue check mark that was made a day ago and try to do the hashtag Taco Bell thing. It's going to look very suspicious and it's not going to get anywhere. But many companies have generated a significant following from their viral marketing or guerrilla-style campaigns. Places like Wendy's have generated a lot of buzz from basically getting their tweets reposted all over social media. Did they pay for that service? Maybe. Does it work for them? Definitely, yes, in terms of getting their brand out there. I don't know how many people actually buy Wendy's based on seeing a funny Wendy's tweet, but it definitely gets their brand name out there. Of course, this kind of content gradually kills the content platform as the entire content platform gradually becomes filled with these kinds of sponsored things and astroturfing. And this was the case for pretty much every dead social media of the past. This was what happened to platforms like MySpace and Dig. They also gradually got kind of constricted by a bunch of viral marketing, guerrilla marketing type crap. Companies trying to spend their thousands of dollars to get upvoted. And of course, on websites like Reddit, where content can be up and down voted, you can buy upvotes from upvote farms and different nations, and they're really not that expensive. So to get something on the front page, you could probably do it for something on the order of 4 or 5 figures, just a few $1,000s, which if it's an ad that millions of people see, could be a pretty good deal. But again, the more that happens, the more the content platform dies, because legitimate users don't want to see this kind of junk all day. Alright, you've got bad astroturfing, which looks a lot like this. How do you do, fellow kids? And then you've got your good astroturfing, which is near invisible. But my rule of thumb is if a product is mentioned, I'm suspicious. It's probably viral marketing. So anytime a product gets mentioned, I am suspicious right away. The cybersecurity side of advertising here is malicious ads. Malicious. So by malicious, I mean advertisements that install malware on your machine, redirect you to anything that you wouldn't want your machine to do, install covert cryptocurrency miners, anything like that. Someone asked, how much would I pay for them to advertise my stream? Let's see, I would pay $0. But let's say I wanted to get this stream popular. Let's say I wanted to get to my 1,000 subscribers so I could monetize my stream. What would I do? I'd post to social media. I'd get, what, 1 upvote? Nobody cares. No one's going to watch it, right? How do I get the ball rolling? What many companies do, startups, new streamers. A lot of people don't like to talk about what they did to get started, but at the beginning of many streamers' success stories is the part where they dropped some money on fake upvotes, viral marketing, that sort of thing, in order to get those first few viewers, to get the snowball rolling. It's almost essential to do some kind of bootstrapping like that, which is unfortunate. Alright, but let's talk about malicious ads, ads that install something on your computer that you didn't want, Ads are the most dangerous source of this kind of malware. It's usually, if you visit a website, the website itself is not the problem. It's the advertisements on the website that are the most nefarious. And those of us who are routinely pirates will definitely recognize this. If you visit a piracy or torrent website without your ad block on, you're going to leave with a few viruses because that's just the way the ads are there. And even occasionally on legitimate websites, we uncover malware. The biggest case that I can recall recently was when Forbes was found to be hosting advertisements that contained malware. It was particularly egregious because Forbes is one of those places that pops up the "please turn off your ad blocker, you can't continue" warning at the beginning. So if you had listened to Forbes' directions and turned off your ad blocker, you'd be served some lovely malware for your trouble. But the problem with ads is that websites basically leave a box open for the ad, and then they allow the third-party host of the advertisements to put whatever ad they're going to put there. So the ads on the website don't come from the website vendor themselves, and they don't vet them or anything. Only the advertising agency vets them, and they don't particularly vet them that much. They have a pretty limited review. And of course, if there's new vulnerabilities that the advertising agency isn't aware of, well, they can't even vet those because they're not aware of them yet. So typically, it's those ads that connect to outside third parties that run the malicious code that ends up compromising your computer or causing you problems in your browser or otherwise. So the real solution here for users is to run an ad blocker, and you should always run an ad blocker. But of course, this drops the revenue of everybody who relies on advertisement to zero. Unless, of course, as the website, as the advertiser, you simply host your own ads, because ad blockers work by blocking these third-party links. The solution is, instead of relying on a third-party service, host your own, and then it's not going to get blocked. This is very rare, though, but it is becoming more popular on platforms like YouTube, where content creators have realized they make almost nothing off of the third-party advertisement through the Google Partnership Program, and you see more and more content creators baking ads into their content, so they have live reads, or they have a spot that's baked into the actual video rather than being an ad that plays in it. So we're seeing more and more of this kind of first-person advertiser hosting to avoid the drop in revenue that's happening with third-party ads. So a little bit more on AdBlock. If you haven't done this already, this is especially important now because YouTube has just announced that they are going to be putting advertisements on all videos, even videos that haven't been monetized. So I'm probably going to get some ads here soon too. If you don't want to see ads on my videos, you better get yourself uBlock, which is actually NanoBlock, Origin for Chrome. The U is the little nano, right? But get uBlock Origin for Chrome, so that will work on your desktop platform. You can actually get this on the mobile version of Firefox if you prefer to use Firefox on mobile. This allows you to get some ad blocking without rooting, and I think it works for the iPhone folks too. On Android, you should get YouTube Advanced, Brave browser, and you should root your phone and install Adaway in order to get rid of all ads. The root plus Adaway approach also blocks ads inside of applications. It just blocks ads everywhere on your phone, so you don't see ads at all anywhere. I don't see them in my browser, I don't see them in my applications, etc. The only place it doesn't block ads is YouTube, which bakes them into its application, so for that you'll need YouTube Advanced. If you are only interested in blocking ads in your web browser, you don't have to root. You can get Advanced and Brave browser. But unfortunately for you iPhone folks, not much for you. Not much for you to do. Yeah, there's someone said there's an extension called AdBlock for YouTube on Chrome Store. You don't need that if you have uBlock. It also blocks the YouTube ads at this time. There will probably be a time fairly soon when it stops being able to do that, at which point I recommend you move to Vivaldi, Brave, or a different Chromium-based web browser, preferably not Edge, where AdBlock will probably continue to be supported. Vivaldi is my choice, but Brave is also fine. Yeah, iPhone folks, you don't have a ton of options for ad blockers. Again, you can probably install Firefox with the uBlock extension for your browsing, but you don't have really any options to block ads inside of your apps and in YouTube unless you either pay or jailbreak your phone. which is pretty difficult for you iPhone people. Now, the option that blocks ads on your entire network when you are on your network at home is the Pi-hole. The Pi-hole redirects all of your advertiser requests to nowhere and makes sure that on your entire network you don't have ads. It uses DNS level blocking, which we're going to look at when we return next week, how DNS works. So Pi-hole is the only option that also works for your smart TV, if that annoys you. If you bought a particularly aggressive brand of TV like Samsung that likes to pop up ads all over the place, this is basically your only option. The Pi-hole will block all of the third-party and generally even first-party ads on your smart TV, but a lot of the time smart TVs will run only first-party ads for their own content. So, for example, the Roku TV that I have runs ads only for Roku content. If that doesn't bother you, then you can obviously whitelist it on your Pi-hole. Pi-hole costs about $40 plus a little bit of install time. Not particularly difficult to do, so if ads really bother you, I suggest going that way. But at the bare minimum, you block origin. Alright. So the dirty secret of internet advertising is that most of it doesn't really work. Most traditional ads don't work in general. There is only a small percentage of people that click all the ads. Let's do a poll. Have you ever purposely clicked an internet ad? How many people have ever purposefully engaged with an internet ad? It is a pretty small percentage in a normal day. You might have done it maybe once in your life when something was very interesting to you, but the vast majority of people never click ads. They just try to get through them as fast as possible. And so there's this tiny portion of the population that is essentially clicking on all of the ads, and most of those guys don't have so much money to buy all the products that they are clicking on. Many ads are for things that people were already gonna buy anyway. If you don't remember, you can answer no. I think that probably serves the same purpose, since you don't do it enough to even remember doing it. You probably haven't done it. Alright, so there were already pretty few yeses. Let me do another one. Have you bought anything after clicking an internet ad? So have you ever actually been converted into a sale by an internet ad? There are certainly situations where I've been exposed to products by internet advertising and then ultimately proceeded to buy them, but I would really be hard-pressed to argue that I actually bought them because I saw the ad. So in most of those cases, those are products that I was going to buy anyway. There is a caveat. Occasionally an ad will be viral and it will work very, very well and it will generate tons of revenue. Occasionally an ad will stick in people's minds so well that it will actually be a huge success. But anybody who's a regular listener of YouTube recognizes HelloFresh, Raid Shadow Legends, Glasswire, VPN of the month is, and Dollar Shave Club, and I don't think that I know very many people who use any of those services, even though they've probably heard them advertised dozens and dozens of times. I don't know what's advertised on TV anymore, because I haven't watched a television ad in almost a decade, but I don't think very many people buy what they see there either. And because ads are so not useful, they also end up being very cheap, especially to the person who is hosting them. When you host Google Ads, Google makes a pretty considerable amount of money because they make it up in volume. But the website that's actually hosting the ads, or if you're on YouTube, the partner that's allowing ads on their video, they make very, very little. Micro pennies a click sometimes. And that's why advertisement-sustained businesses generally tend to fail. So it's very, very hard to build a business platform on advertisement as your primary revenue model. You can use advertisements as an early revenue model and then pivot to something else. But if you stick with ads as your primary revenue model, you will likely fail. And one of the main reasons that you will likely fail is, as we mentioned earlier, Google can ban you outright with no recourse, essentially. And that can happen overnight, and that can be your entire livelihood. So I would recommend to nobody to base a business on advertising, because it is a very unreliable, very inconsistent form of income today, and again, it can vanish overnight for no reason, not the least of which is somebody just wants to mess with you and hires a clickbot to get your AdSense account banned. So what's the line between advertising and extortion too? Because there is an extortative side of advertising. The most viable ad companies today are search engines and social media companies. We'll look at who they are later, but I use Google as an example because they're obviously the biggest online advertiser. So let's say that you run somecompany.com and I run othercompany.com, and a user searches some company on Google. What's going to come up when they search some company? Hopefully somecompany.com comes up, because that's what the user was probably looking for. Well, let's look at a couple examples I took a few months ago. So here I searched for Geico on Bing, everyone's favorite search engine, so I don't hate too much on Google. I pulled up Bing as a comparison. Where is Geico in the search results? 1, 2, 3, fourth down. So I searched Geico. I got to get down to here before I actually get the Geico website. These are all ads. I turned off ad block for both of these, by the way. So these are all ads for different websites that are not Geico. An unsophisticated user who doesn't realize that these are ads, which, by the way, the only way you can tell is a microscopic little gray icon right there that says ad. Even a tech-savvy user could easily be misled into thinking that these are legitimate search results, right? A microscopic little icon. So an unsophisticated user would easily click one of these 3 links before they click geico.com. I've seen dozens of people who are not tech people do their searches like that. They'll search the keyword, they'll click the top result no matter what it is, ad or not. So that is definitely the way that most non-tech savvy people, and even many tech savvy people, browse the internet. Here I did it on Google. Geico, I got an ad at the top again. The only way you can tell it's an ad is a microscopic little bolded word right there that says ad. They used to be in their own special box. They used to be a fancy color. Now they're just a microscopic little indicator there, and I'm sure soon that'll be gone too, and it'll just be like a little dot that says advertisement, or like an asterisk that links down to a footnote that says advertisement, something like that. But yeah, again, if you click the top result here, you don't end up at Geico. Here's another example, Fortnite on Bing. Let's say I want to visit the Fortnite website. That's epicgames.com, which I didn't know until I did the search, but it's epicgames.com. If I search it on Bing, it's not even on the first page. There's all this other stuff for different places. These are all probably advertised spots. I see some tweets. I see some different articles. I see events and videos, but I don't see a link to epicgames.com. Now, in Bing's defense, they do let you click on a result called Download Fortnite, which I guess will take you to epicgames.com, probably. It would be even funnier if they didn't, though. But they also include Fortnite streams in there, which is obviously advertised content. So here the ads are very, very buried. On Google, the results are even more nefarious. What is the problem here? You look up Fortnite, and the first result is an ad for epicgames.com. The second result is epicgames.com itself, but organically. So let's look at why that's a big problem. First of all, the first thing that we looked at, the thing with Geico, buying your competitors' keywords. So these online advertisers, companies like Google, will sell different words basically at auction. So you can buy the word Geico, and when somebody searches Geico, your ad will come up. And you allocate a certain amount of funds. The word goes for, let's say, I don't know, 30 cents a result or something. Let's say you win the auction, you bid 30 cents a result for Geico. They will bill you 30 cents for every person that searches Geico till you're out of money, basically. And you can give it more granularity than that. It can be click-based instead. You can make it regional. You can match it to only certain kind of users based on advertiser profiles, but that's roughly the way that it works. So if you're a company and you want to succeed and you have an online presence, you need to bid on keywords that are relevant to your industry. That means services that you're participating in. So Geico would bid on something like automobile insurance, auto insurance, home insurance, Ohio insurance. They would bid on those kinds of keywords. But then you also have to bid on your own name. And if you refuse to bid on your own name, then a competitor will buy your own name. And if a competitor buys your own name, then their results get placed above yours. So I couldn't find a result here, but it's something that you can try for yourself. See if you can get a competitor's results, a direct competitor's results on top of the organic results for another business. Right. And if that happens to you, of course you're going to lose business because, again, not tech-savvy people will just click the top results. If you win the bid, if you buy your own name, then all you've done is wasted money to rank at the top of search results for your own name. You've gained nothing at that point. And now, if people click, the only difference between people clicking this top one and the second one is that if you click the top one, Epic Games loses 30, 50 cents, whatever they pay per click on this advertisement. If you click this one, it's free. So if you're buying your own name as a keyword and then your own search result is next in the organic search results, as it should be, then you're essentially paying to just keep your own status as an organic search result. So you're paying users to go to your own website when they would have gone to it anyway if there just weren't any ads over it. So the result is you're basically in an arms war for your own brand name. And so all of the different businesses that have a web presence basically have to compete for their own keywords. There are basically just three companies responsible for all of the digital advertising on the internet. Google controls the vast majority of digital ad spending in general, so that's basically through AdSense. Google advertises on different websites. You can always install the AdSense plugin on your website. In fairness, it's a very good plugin. It's easy to do. The revenue is usually fair. You can get banned randomly for no reason, but that probably happens on all advertising platforms. It's a very difficult thing to control. Facebook controls the vast majority of advertising in the social media sphere. Remember, Facebook also owns things like WhatsApp and Instagram and other different social media websites, so Facebook is a large company. And then in terms of e-commerce advertising, Amazon controls a pretty big chunk, but not a majority necessarily. So Google controls most of the digital and mobile ads, Facebook of the social media, and Amazon a big chunk of the e-commerce ads. And this is going to be the subject of a series of antitrust cases that were due to drop at the end of 2020 or so before the pandemic hits. We'll see if they get delayed, but it's likely that these will continue to move forward against the dominion of these different companies. Before we move on from advertising, let's talk about our university, John Carroll. We're about to launch a very big marketing campaign online. So, in the coming months, I'd like you to, if you remember, give it a shot. Try to search like best regional college Midwest, or even just search our name and see what keywords John Carroll decided to buy as part of their marketing campaign. It'll be interesting. I don't think they've launched it yet. I think it won't launch till probably the summer or so, but it'll be interesting to see how they try to structure their ad campaign online. All right, your next way to make money on the internet, let's say that you don't want to do advertising, so of course you go for the next best thing, which is to try to sell people a subscription to your service. You can consider this something like the Patreon model, but this is also how most newspapers and other media companies make their bread and butter. They try to get subscribers to pay a small monthly fee. This is a really tough industry to be engaged in with really, really slim margins. Most people don't buy subscriptions. I'm going to take another poll here, and this is skewed because most of the people who buy these kinds of subscriptions tend to be older. But do you have a subscription to any media site? And this is like news, etc. It would include social media where you would have to pay a subscription fee. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there are some premium subscription services on different social media platforms. Most people don't buy any kind of subscription. If they buy a subscription, it's usually for a service such as Spotify, Netflix, YouTube, something like that. Those don't really count. The subscriptions that I'm talking about here are to view content. And this presents a pretty big dilemma. It's that if you create a pay gate, a paywall on your content, well, obviously people aren't going to buy your content if they don't know what they're getting first, which means that you have to give people a sample of your content in order to convince them that it is worth their subscription money to buy. And that leads to the problem of, well, how much should I give away for free to convince people to buy it? If you give too much away, then nobody's going to want to pay for it because they don't feel like they're getting a deal. Someone said that they'll inspect Element and search for what they want before the subscription blocker locks them out. Sure, you can do that, or you can get an ad blocker, and it usually bypasses those. Aha. All right. So the first adversary that you have when you're a subscription-based service is your user unsubscribing, or at least many subscription-based services treat their users this way. I'd like you all at some point in your lives to try canceling something like, I don't know, a newspaper account or something. It's not easy. And then, of course, everybody knows the meme about how difficult it is to cancel your gym membership, and it is no joke. They usually require you to send them a letter by snail mail or something. Digital services are no better. Many companies treat users unsubscribing as a hostile act and make it increasingly or incredibly difficult. They might make it even impossible to do on the internet, forcing you to go to snail mail or something. So if you can prevent unsubscribing, I guess the logic is that people will just keep paying. I don't know how frustrating your users into staying is really a sustainable business model, but it seems to work because so many people do it. Another option is to simply hide charges so users don't know what they're paying. I play a little game with anybody who's willing to let me share their Amazon account or to look at their Amazon account, where I go in to Amazon's super duper duper top secret area where you can actually see your subscriptions, and I show them all the stuff that they're accidentally subscribed to. I've called people out, people who have lost well over $1,000 being subscribed to stuff they didn't know they were subscribed to. I can almost guarantee that if you go to your Amazon account now and try to find the super duper secret subscription page, you're subscribed to something you're not aware of, and you're probably paying something like $10 a month for it. I can almost guarantee that because almost everyone who I do it to is. Generally speaking, you don't notice because those charges are buried under the wave of your other Amazon purchases. And then other kind of friendly business models you can do here are to charge early termination fees or refuse to refund unused time. This is kind of understandable, though. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's from the business's point of view, I can see not wanting people to break their contract early or that sort of thing, but it is definitely annoying from the customer perspective. So the troll solution, at least in the United States, is to send them certified mail saying that you are going to cancel your service effective immediately. They basically can't reject that, and if they do, you can just sue them in small claims court, which is hilarious. So that's something that I like to do when a provider makes it particularly annoying for me to deal with them. I just send them certified mail. Let me see. Somebody posted the Your Memberships and Subscriptions page. That's not it. It's secreter than that. Someone posted that they were accidentally subscribed to Amazon Music for 5 years. I don't think that would even show up in that page. The page where you can see the subscriptions to Prime Video is usually the one that people aren't aware of. But there are actually several little areas where you can see your subscription on Amazon that are different. And that's what usually tricks people into thinking they don't have anything when they actually do. So try to find your Amazon Prime Video subscriptions, or there's like another one for your services too. I believe there's 3 different places you have to look. Some jurisdictions are legislating some of these bad practices away, or at least trying to. In the EU, they're trying to pass laws that make it so that unsubscribing must be doable in the same way as subscribing, at least. Because subscribing is usually very easy. You can just do it on the web, so that's, at least in my opinion, a pretty straightforward way to do it, that you have to be able to unsubscribe in the same way you can subscribe. I'm on board with that. That makes sense. Your second adversary when you are a subscription service is pirates and ad blockers, of course, people who are stealing your gated content. Good ad blockers, like uBlock Origin, can often bypass paywalls entirely. If the uBlock Origin bypasser doesn't work, there's always other options. The war between the paywall and the anti-paywall ad blocker has been raging for years, and broadly the ad blockers are winning. So content gated behind these kinds of paywalls is usually bypassed very easily by going to a website like outline.com, which just reads the text of that website. And the reason that that bypass works is because for your page to be indexed by a search engine, which means for it to come up in the search results when somebody Googles, let's say you've written an article on cake and you want people to see it when they Google for news about cake. If you don't allow your web page to be indexed by a web crawler, then it won't be available in those search results. And if you allow it to be indexed by a web crawler, then outline.com can do the same thing and just display all of the text to the user. So because web crawlers have to be able to parse the text of all of the different pages you want your search results to come up in, anything you can find in search results, you can typically view the full text through one of these third-party services that just parses the text out of them. So there really is no viable solution to people pirating your paid content when you're a subscription service, unfortunately. And of course, everybody knows video and picture-based subscription services, well, people just re-upload those somewhere else for free. You just download them and then re-upload them elsewhere, and there's not particularly much that can be done about that. So how about selling real goods and services? How about traditional, plain old sales, right? Traditional, plain old sales. Well, traditional, plain sales is actually not that profitable. Many people think that Amazon is a retail company and that they make most of their money by selling things, but they're not. They're actually primarily a web service hosting company. AWS, which is Amazon's web services hosting platform, is about 2/3 of their income. The online retail section is only about 1/3, and it's definitely not their most profitable. The online retail is barely profitable, actually. Amazon is still by far the largest retailer in the West. They account for about 50% of e-commerce in the West, so in the United States, and I think in the EU as well. Second place is eBay with just 7%, so Amazon owns a huge chunk and they are the first by far. But the most successful e-retailer in the world is actually Alibaba, which is now more often known as Taobao, the Chinese e-retailer. They make a considerable amount of money. They have a far greater share in their market, and their profits are much better, Amazon, compared to Alibaba. Alibaba usually wins. Now, Amazon has become, in recent years, mostly a reseller of Alibaba junk. As somebody who is a regular user of Taobao and Alibaba, I've been buying things on Alibaba since it was Alibaba, and then AliExpress, and then Taobao, and all of its different incarnations, when it was still just something you could use to buy 1,000 units of a little gear or something for 5 cents a pop. Most of the products on Amazon today are resales of things that other people bought on AliExpress or Alibaba. Which brings us to dropshipping, arbitrage. So in arbitrage, you sell a product, buy it from a third party, and ship it directly to the consumer, and you have no store of your own. This is the process called dropshipping. In the 2000s, this was a very lucrative business. You would create a web page to sell things, but in reality, whenever you made a sale on your webpage, you would then proceed to place an order at some Chinese company who didn't have a web presence yet in the West, and it would ship directly from them, and you would never actually warehouse it or be responsible for any part of the shipment or anything. So obviously the key to this kind of business model is to make sure that your page comes up first in the search results. So this is where search engine optimization really took off, was trying to get the race between these different dropshipping websites to get themselves at the top of the results. And search engine optimization is itself kind of a gray market, because you are trying to trick a search engine into putting you at the top. You are not trying to get there by legitimate organic traffic. So it is a gray market itself. It's not illegal and it's not against terms of service in general, but it is definitely an odd practice. It's not a totally legit practice. So this whole industry is born out of dropshipping, and when dropshipping eventually falls apart because Amazon ends up taking over most of e-commerce and dropshipping ends up operating mostly through Amazon instead, first of all, you have the equivalent of SEO on Amazon now, trying to get to the top of the Amazon results instead of the top of the Google results. But then all of those people who are skilled in SEO have to go somewhere. They go all over the internet, and eventually the whole internet is consumed by this process of optimization. All these different blogs trying to get to the top. Whenever you search for something like recipe for chicken noodle soup, the top result is determined mostly by a competition of different search engine optimizers trying to get their thing to the top there, trying to get their blog or their website or whatever to the top of the results so they can get more ad revenue. The difference between first, second, and third on the Google search results, again, is huge. If you're first, it's a massive boost to your traffic. And let's look at some of the other sort of cybersecurity related elements of sales. There's the knockoff and counterfeit industry, which has grown huge since Amazon has become to dominate e-commerce. There was a lot of counterfeiting and knockoffing to be done before Amazon took over, in fairness. However, it was difficult to do, and most people tended to not buy the junk that they found on SEO drop shipping websites. So most people tended not to buy knockoff ray bombs from rayboom.com or whatever it would be. Yeah, most people were usually savvy enough for that. But the number of people I know who routinely buy Amazon knockoffs is enormous. I mean, pretty much don't know anybody who doesn't just buy Amazon knockoffs on a regular basis. Many of the top reviewed products on Amazon, anything that's indicated as Amazon's choice, many of the stuff that has a lot of 5 stars, many of the stuff that has a lot of reviews, many of these products are manipulated in the sense that the seller pays people to leave reviews, and then they do, and then the product has a bunch of 5-star reviews and a bunch of sales, and so it becomes the top spot for that product category, and then legitimate people buy it, and it becomes a huge source of revenue. So this is a common trick in order to get your product to the top of Amazon. A 5-star review can be worth hundreds of dollars on particularly niche products if you're trying to get the top result for some certain kind of gear or a very specific electronic device. How do you know if a reviewer got the product for free? In the early days, Amazon even allowed this kind of practice. You could mark a product as received for free, leave a 5-star review basically as a sponsored review. Eventually they got rid of this practice, and now it's all under the table transactions. But how do you know that a reviewer is real? How do you know that the product that they purchased legitimately for a real reason and not because they were paid to do so? This has become a huge problem for Amazon, and they actually now spend over $500 million every year employing about 10,000 people, many of whom are developers, just trying to counter their ballooning, knockoff, counterfeit, etc. industry. So it has become very difficult to buy things on Amazon. There are certain categories of products I would recommend you never buy. Things like memory cards and hard drives very often arrive counterfeit. But I've gotten knockoffs of other things as well. And then there are, of course, the white label random off-brand things that are pretty much universal there. If you search for something like keyboard or mechanical keyboard, you'll get something like 400 results from different no-name brands before you even get to the brand name results, generally speaking. So very difficult to search for those kinds of things on Amazon today. And to be fair, it's not necessarily Amazon's fault. It's just that there's a lot of money to be made here, and it's very difficult to counter it. And then you've got your plain old routine fraud. Plain old routine fraud is a big problem in sales. Chargebacks on credit cards very much so favor the buyer, allowing you to very easily claim illegitimately that you didn't get something or that something didn't arrive as expected and get all of your money back. And then not only does the seller lose all the money for the sale, they also typically have to pay a fee for getting charged back. So it's a double whammy. You don't make any money and you lose money on top of that. And then, of course, there's the potential for fraud very easily on both ends. The seller can simply mail you a box of bricks and say that they sent you what they sent you, no refunds. And the buyer can pretend that they got a box of bricks and say, give me a refund. The only way to avoid both of these scenarios is to use some kind of reputation system, which is what eBay had for a long time. The problem with any kind of reputation system is that reputation can be bought and sold. You can make a lot of money liquidating a reputable account and basically turning it into an irreputable account before its reputation goes down enough for it to be a problem. So when you have this kind of reputation system, trust becomes a commodity, and then it's another financial relationship of, well, is it worth it to buy this 5-star eBay account? How much money can I make off this 5-star eBay account by defrauding people before the account gets shut down? It becomes a formula like that instead, which is still better than the alternative of no trust system, but not too much better. Alright, that's all we're going to do today. Maybe we'll pick this up if we have another free day, but enjoy your Thanksgiving break. I will see you guys in a week.